Hello and welcome back to the Pitch Side podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSB. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes of the podcast and all the content on the channel. Follow us on social media, site PSB on Twitter, Pitch Side Pod on Instagram, and you can listen, of course, on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform. Join us here for episode 153, and you're welcome. Before we talk about Laliga and the hot title race going on there, or Serie A's top 4 tight race there as well, we start from the Premier League, and it was a London derby. It was Chelsea playing Arsenal. Of course, Chelsea playing the Cup final, the FA Cup final on Saturday. They had to play this early. Of course, it was a rescheduled game from round 36, and it went somehow like we didn't predict it. I said yesterday that this game could really take us by surprise. I mean, you look at the priorities that Chelsea have at the moment, despite the fact that they still involved in somehow in the top 4 battle. I mean, they're still not that much secured in their top 4 spot, but they could end up winning the FA Cup, the Champions League, and be in the top 4 in the Premier League, which is going to be nice. But the game was surprising once again, and Arsenal pulled a double on Chelsea, of course, defeating them 1-0 at Stamford Bridge. It was a game, it was a game of little action, to be fair. Like, it wasn't, it wasn't entertaining, it wasn't end-to-end stuff. Arsenal were on the defensive side most times. They're not, and a bad defensive mistake from Jorginho meant that Arsenal had a goal that they wouldn't dreamt of, really, if they played for the whole game, and plus that. But they defended really well. They mirrored Chelsea's formation 3-4-1-2, because Saka starting as a right wing back. I really didn't like that when you had a proper someone fit in Cedric Suarez at the bench. You had someone like Callum Chambers who could start in that position as a right back, and he played as a 4 in the back. But what works for Mikel Arteta. I'd say he won't really care how the formation is being and how the players will position themselves on the pitch. The only thing that we care about is the fact that they won. And listen, it may not be. It is pretty late to say that Arsenal will get a top 6 or a top 4 spot, because I think that won't happen. But it definitely is going to be a good momentum-boosting victory to think about next season, to dismiss maybe the rumours and the innuendos surrounding Mikel Arteta's future. Of course, at the club, it's pretty up in the air at the moment. What happens to Arteta next season? For Chelsea, how worrying this result could be for Tuchel. Yes, it was an ineffective performance. But when did Chelsea had a performance where they scored like 5 or 6 and you felt like they will always score? Even in the games where they win again, like they win by 2-0 at the very best, and they're just economic, and they defend really well. That is, I think, the gist of Chelsea's Chelsea's season at the moment under Thomas Tuchel, heading into the Champions League final. That is what they needed to do. That is where their discipline comes from. And obviously, after a victory against Man City, everyone, start looking at Chelsea differently. Yes, you could say that the squad was rotated, but not to the extent that justifies losing to this Arsenal, I would say, because I look at the Chelsea squad and I still believe it is a stronger one than Arsenal will ever have this season. The goal coming in from Smith-Rowe, but then Arsenal stayed on the defending side for the whole game. Chelsea had a goal chalked off for Christian Pulisic in the second half for like the VAR margins that are really akin to what we usually see in the Premier League. So with that in mind, again, this result, how worrying would be for Tuchel? I'd say not too much, because they can still rely on the next couple of games that they will have in the league. But definitely, it is not an easy result to fathom, even for a finalist of the Champions League. Just got to the final of the Champions League. Chelsea, who I would say pretty secure in the top 4 spots, unless something miraculous happened, particularly with Liverpool, I would say, who have 2 games in hand, the game against United on Thursday, and then they play against, of course, West Brom on Saturday in the Premier League, on Sunday in the Premier League, that is. So Chelsea could still collapse from the top 4 spots, but it would take a Herculean effort from Liverpool and from West Ham United if they are to be taken down. For Arsenal, just like the victory against Chelsea in the first leg of the season was a bit of a momentum booster, maybe this one is going to be a momentum booster, at least to finish the season as best as they can, and look forward for next season, in which they will not have European football, and probably they will be better for it to focus on the league and focus to getting top 6 into a top 4. I don't think that without European football, the ambitions of the fans will be the same. I think they will be demanding a top 4 finish on the table. That is what I think would happen for Arsenal next season. For Chelsea, again, they just need to reshuffle, take it on the chin, and go. They have a Champions League final looking forward to. They have an FA Cup final to look forward to on Saturday, and it's going to be a pretty interesting situation for Chelsea and Thomas Tuchel heading into the rest of the season. To Spain we go now, and to La Liga, of course. 4 matches took place yesterday, the biggest of which I would say is Atletico Madrid versus Real Sociedad, and they definitely didn't let the chance escape their hands once again. Like they usually did for most of the second half of the season. They defeated Real Sociedad 2-1, albeit it was a classic Atletico victory, in that is, they played well for the first 45 minutes of the game. They scored twice, thanks to Nick Carrasco and Angel Correa from a Luis Suarez assist that was brilliant. It was a majestic assist from Luis Suarez. The subtlety about it was brilliant. The second goal from Angel Correa after that. Atletico Madrid regressed to the back. They left most of possession to Real Sociedad, most of the chances to Real Sociedad in the second half, but definitely they were not effective for the most part until a goal from the 83rd minute by Igor Zubeldia almost made Atletico Madrid feel nervous for the rest of the game. It would have been a really rough ending had Atletico Madrid conceded late on to drop points again or to lose those points in the Liga title race. Of course, now they have a 4-point advantage over Barcelona, a potential of a 2-point advantage over Real Madrid at the very best. So it would be a pretty tight situation. It's still tight, it's still not over technically, but it looks now as it is closer and closer to Atletico Madrid than ever before. Again, I said it once and I said it always. I always thought Atletico Madrid will just have enough to get it over the line. I thought Barcelona and Real Madrid were inconsistent, and I wasn't wrong about it. I think time proved me right. The results that Real Madrid and Barcelona had seriously hurt them, particularly Barcelona, who looked like they have a marginally better chance to do it than Real Madrid, considering the fact that Barcelona seemed to play some good football for the most part this season, when they had a good run, at the very least with Koeman. But the results that they have as of late, the 3 results back-to-back, the draw against Levante, before that the draw against Atletico, and before that, of course, the loss against Granada at home, those bad results were really, really hurting Barcelona's title credentials, and definitely now with 4 points behind Atletico Madrid, I think it's out of question for them, and not just because of their inconsistency. I think because of their fixture list compared to Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid next round they will face Osasuna at home, and then they will go away to play Real Valladolid. So expect them to beat those two teams. As far as Barcelona are concerned, they play Celta Vigo at home, which is not an easy fixture in any kind of way. And then you have, of course, they play in the last round against Eibar away, which we don't know how tricky that can be for Barcelona. As for Real Madrid, of course, we know they will face Granada on Thursday. They still have the game in hand, of course, before. Then they go to San Mamés to face Athletic Bilbao in the penultimate round, and then Villarreal in the last round. The hardest, I think, of the 3 title contenders as far as the title race is concerned. Again, I still think that Atletico Madrid will just have enough to get over the line. Finally, they will achieve something at the very least after getting eliminated from the Champions League in the round of 16, being eliminated early from the Copa del Rey in the round of 64 of all places. If they don't win the league, it's going to be a massive collapse, and they were pretty threatened to do that early on in the season. The second half of the season wasn't particularly great from Atletico Madrid. If you look at the standings in some way, you really think that, I think at the second half of the season, they were the 3rd, I think, in terms of results, so the 2nd maybe behind Barcelona. So definitely, as far as Atletico Madrid is concerned, that will be a pretty team achievement, considering what they could have done early on. They could have run away with the league. They could have spared themselves this sort of nervous end to the season, nervous turn. They sort of spared themselves the trouble, but they didn't. They shot themselves in the foot. They allowed Barcelona and Real Madrid to have a way back on them, and definitely now with the 4-point advantage over Barcelona. And it could be, I mean, a bad result for Real Madrid, I would say it would officially kill any kind of title race credentials for Real Madrid, particularly a loss against Granada, which is very likely, to be fair, looking at how Real Madrid perform as of late. They could lose against Granada, and Granada are not a bad side either. I mean, they are 10th, literally middle of the table, but I don't think they were a slouch at all. They defeated Barcelona at home, which is, you know, quite the achievement as well, although maybe not considering how the season has been going to Barcelona at home. They had some bad results at home, really, in the Liga and the Champions League. So it is Real Valladolid facing Villarreal today, Eibar versus Real Betis, and Granada, of course, versus Real Madrid, the rest of the games for today. Yesterday, Sevilla defeated Valencia 1-0, a result that, you know, useless in the grand scheme of things. I mean, if they defeated Athletic Bilbao a couple of weeks ago, we could have been talking about a true title race now. We could have been talking about Sevilla still in the thick of it, really. But definitely, I mean, it's a result that will neither take them up or down. I mean, the best they could do now, I think, is go second behind Atletico Madrid, which is, I think, an impossible task to do, you know, considering the fact that Barcelona will try as best as they can, and Real Madrid will try as best as they can to defeat the teams that they're going to be facing in the last 3 rounds or so in the league. Celta Vigo defeated Getafe 1-0, and Huesca shockingly defeat Athletic Bilbao, of course. Huesca, with that result, absolutely working wonders for them in terms of the relegation. They just above the relegation zone, 2 points above Valladolid, who play, of course, Villarreal. Valencia losing once again, a result that, you know, it's not going to see them relegated, but finishing at 14th or 15th is not going to be what they wanted this season, definitely. And, of course, for Celta Vigo, you know, they're pretty secure up the table, 8th, and their opponents, Getafe, are really, really struggling down at 16th with 34 points. And saving the best till last, of course, Serie A, certainly, with the title being over and done and dusted for Inter Milan. The top 4 race is still going on there, and it is absolutely tight, and it gets even tighter with the results of yesterday. Of course, the bulk of the round 36 from the Serie A was played yesterday. 7 matches were on the card, or 8 matches were on the card. Cagliari drawn against Fiorentina 0-0, a result that I think would add nothing for both sides. On the standings, Fiorentina are 13th, 39 points, pretty away from the relegation. Cagliari with 36, still a bit threatened with Torino having a game in hand as well. Of course, they still pretty threatened, but I would say they almost secure. I mean, with a good percentage that they are secure up the table, of course, and staying in Serie A for another season. Then, of course, we start talking about the games that matter. Before that, Genoa defeated Bologna 2-0 away from home, a result that, again, Genoa 39 points, pretty secured at 14th, and Bologna 40 points at 11th, the warm zone kind of thing for both sides. Then we start talking, of course, about the big games that will matter. Atalanta defeating Benevento 2-0, making quick and painless work, I would say, for Benevento. Good side this season, despite their position on the table. Will tell you they are 18th, yes, but they have been a good side, giving some true problems to the big fish in the Serie A this season. 2 goals coming either side of halftime by Luis Muriel and Mario Pasalic inside 22 minutes of each half, giving Atalanta the easy victory and giving them the 2nd place back, of course, ahead of AC Milan on head-to-head competition and on goal difference, really. Inter Milan, after defeating Sampdoria 5-1, continue their victory lap and their sort of championship tour in these last couple of games, defeating Roma 3-1. I mean, Roma weren't bad, but per se in this one, they necessarily weren't exactly horrible. They played really well for the first 20-25 minutes, then Inter Milan stung them with 2 goals, despite that on the counter. I mean, 3 goals that were typical Inter Milan counter-attack in football under Antonio Conte, and with Roma's flailing defence really not exactly at its best, they will easily concede, I think, from any counter you would think of. Marcelo Brozovic opened the scoring thanks to Matteo Darmian assist, Matheus Vecino made it 2 in 20 minutes thanks to Lukaku's assist, and then Henrik Mkhitaryan brought Roma sort of back into the game at half an hour 2-1. Then Achraf Hakimi made it 3, or Romelu Lukaku made it 3-0, 3-1 thanks to an Achraf Hakimi assist, of course. 88 points for Inter Milan, and the victory tour, the championship tour for them is still continuing next time. Of course, the next stop will be against Juventus. Lazio defeated Parma 1-0. This result could be huge if they want to get and sneak in maybe into the top 4, albeit, there's little chance almost they could do that. Yes, they have a game in hand, they win that, they have 70 points, of course, but definitely it is the kind of situation where Lazio seem close but not enough really. That's what you could describe Lazio as. Probably Europa League wouldn't be so bad after all for a side that is doing decent, I think, in Serie A over the last couple of seasons, and they could do with some easier competition to participate in than the Champions League, and then maybe getting eliminated early on in the group stages or in the round of 16 like happened this season. Sampdoria drawn 2-2 against Spezia. I mean, by the way, I forgot about something to mention about the Inter game. Shout out to Inter for that horrible shirt. I mean, it looks nauseating. I just wanted to say that, take it out of my chest. It looks nauseating. I really can't take it. If they're going to be playing with that next season, I'm sorry. I just will turn off the TV maybe, because that is going to do all sorts of trouble to my eyes as a viewer. Anyway, back to it. Sampdoria drawn against Spezia 2-2. Of course, they lost, Spezia lost the lead twice in the game as Tommaso Pobega scored a brace for them. Valerio Veri scored 1-1 inside 32 minutes to make it 1-1. Then, of course, Spezia took the lead again thanks to Pobega, and then Keita Baldi managed to make it 2-2 for Sampdoria inside 80 minutes. Spezia, of course, are threatened with relegation, 4 points ahead of Benevento, and certainly they're still involved in the thick of it with Torino. So we're going to get to them in a bit. It's a bad result for them as well. As for Sampdoria, a draw that again will do no good or bad for them. They're 9th on the table, 46 now in the warm zone. They're doing decently under Ranieri, I would say. Credit for them for having a really decent season, I would say, considering where they were last one, and considering the usually uncharacteristic ambitions they have for a season that they end up completely collapsing. Then we get to the big guns, of course, Juventus. I mean, everybody was worried ahead of this game. Everybody thought that this is going to be life or death for Juventus, and it is to a certain extent, to be fair. It is life and death for Juventus. It is. I mean, the ghost of the Europa League is indeed looming. You look at Juventus fixtures, they have Inter and Bologna. These are the 2 fixtures left for them, and they're not easy by any chance of the imagination. Certainly not the Inter one, at the very least. Hosting Inter at home is not going to be an easy task. Then you have obviously the game against Bologna, which won't be easy really. It's not going to be that simple to deal with, but at least they spared themselves the trouble against Sassuolo in a game where, frankly, they were the second best, if not saying the worst team on the pitch. They still managed to defeat Sassuolo, though. Defensive mistakes, counter-attacks. I mean, if you watch the game, you will not believe that Juventus won 3-1. Even watching the game and seeing and seeing Juventus attack and seeing them score goals, you will not believe how they could. You will not believe how they could have defeated Sassuolo in that game. Cristiano Ronaldo got to 100 goals with Juventus in 131 games. Got to the century at the very least with Juventus, which is, I think, a good achievement for him personally, despite the blame that is getting thrown at him for Juventus's problems. And again, he's part of the problem. He's not the problem. He's not the reason that Juventus are in such miserable situation, I would say, considering the defending champions heading into this season. But definitely he's a part of the system and he's a part of the problem. We can't not blame him, but we can't blame him for everything as well. So that is going to be wrong in both sides. But still, Juventus managed to defeat Sassuolo 3-1. Again, a good result. Paulo Dybala as well reached 100 goals for Juventus, which is again a good achievement for him personally. He's been on the fringes for a while with Maurizio Sarri, and under Paolo he didn't exactly set the world on fire this season. But always, just like I mentioned, a shout out to Inter Milan's shirt. This time I'm going to mention a shout out to Juve's goalkeeper, the legendary Gianluigi Buffon. Saved a penalty in the 16th minute, kept Juve in the game. You cannot imagine how the game would have went if Domenico Berardi scored this penalty and gave Sassuolo the lead that early in the game. The game would have taken a completely different path and road to went down to. Juventus, a lot of mistakes, couple of things still to fix. The results against Inter in the weekend is going to be crucial if they want to stay in the top four, if they want to keep their hopes for the Champions League alive. I would say they should defeat Inter. They must defeat Inter. It's a must-win situation for Juventus against the champions, no matter what they would do. I think it's a must-win. The life and death for Juventus probably depends on this, and with the probable sanctions, about the Super League involvement from UEFA, from the Italian Federation itself, it looks like it's going to be some sort of very tense and very nervous end for the season for Juventus outside of the footballing pitch as well. A team that won't have a nervous ending outside the pitch for the season is Milan, and I don't think that they had a bad time on the pitch either yesterday, completely thrashing Torino 7-0. It was... the first half was pretty well poised, I would say, for the most part. Like, Torino were playing, they missed a couple of opportunities. Milan were not exactly that great in the first half, despite scoring twice by Theo Hernandez and Frank Kessié, but the second half completely put to rest any kind of doubt over Milan's quality over Torino. Ante Rebic scoring a hat-trick, Theo Hernandez scoring a brace, Rafael Leao assisting the sixth goal. Brahim Diaz getting under the score sheet, Frank Kessié scoring from the penalty spot. It was it was the best showing, I think, for Milan this season, and definitely a showing worthy of a team to return to the Champions League. 75 points they are behind Atalanta, and guess what? They will meet in the last round of Serie A, Milan and Atalanta. Maybe by then both teams would have secured their top four spots, I would say. Again, it all hinges on this week's game between Juve and Inter Milan, and Roma versus Lazio, of course. Big games coming in Serie A in the weekend, but definitely for Milan, this is one step closer towards returning to the Champions League, towards returning to their, proper place, I would say, in Europe, not the Europa League. The Champions League is Milan's home in Europe, of course. And of course, on today, Crotone hosts Hellas Verona to finish round 36, and tomorrow we're going to be previewing, of course, that crucial round in Serie A between the round 37, where Juventus are going to meet Inter and Roma are going to meet Lazio in the capital derby. That's it from me for this episode. I was with the HID of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes of the podcast and all the content on the channel. Follow us on social media and website PSP on Twitter, page Pod on Instagram, and listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. Until next time, I will be seeing you soon. Goodbye.